Russia now confirming the death of Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin. New questions now popping up over Moscow's ability to win the war in Ukraine. Prigozhin, who challenged the Kremlin earlier this summer, stopping short of a revolt, was considered critical to Russia's war effort in eastern Ukraine, even taking the city of Bakhmut in May, which was a rare victory for Putin's forces. Some are wondering what happens next with the mercenaries and what their role will be in the war. For more, let's bring in retired four-star Air Force General Philip Breedlove, who served as NATO's Supreme Allied Commander for Europe from 2013 to 2016. Always like talking to you. You're very straightforward, clear. How important is it that the Wagner Group is aiding Russia in their success in Ukraine?
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me on. It's pretty clear that when Wagner was on the battlefield, that things were better for Russia. But I would offer that even when Wagner was in Bakhmut, the tide was beginning to turn on the Russian forces already. And what we see now is, while it's not as fast as some had hoped for, the offensive and the counteroffensive actions of Ukraine are beginning to really take effect, especially in southern Ukraine.
And of course, we've talked about how widely believed it is that Prigozhin's death was not an accident, but an execution, which would send a pretty strong message to all of Prigozhin's men. I know his second in command was also on that plane that crashed, leading to the deaths. But is there any scenario where the Wagner Group becomes a bigger problem to the Kremlin, perhaps plotting revenge because of that death?
Well, we can't write that off. They were very loyal to Prigozhin. He was a very charismatic leader. While Mr. Putin was detached and not paying attention to what was going on with his troops in the field, Prigozhin was amongst them. He was wearing battle rattle, and he was on the battlefield, and he was advocating for what they needed, all the things that Mr. Putin would never do. And so he's a leader of men. He was a leader of men. So the troops are very loyal to him. But may I just also say, remember that these are mercenaries.
Yeah.
And where the money is, they are likely to go. And so we are yet to see where the money will come from next. And then we'll truly see, are they going to remain loyal to their old boss or some new boss who has cash?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. We're playing video of Prigozhin seen last in Africa before he was on that plane. The Wagner Group, I've done my research, operating primarily in Africa, plundering natural resources there in exchange for protecting high-level officials, in one case from a presumed coup. Could we see a mutiny there?
Well, what we do know is that even Russia was intending to use Wagner in Africa. It was only 4 hours after this revolt sort of started that Mr. Lavrov was on the TV praising Wagner for its actions in North Africa, and that there would be a role for them there in the future. And what we also didn't know for a long time is Wagner had other functions inside the Russian military. They were recruiting, they were supplying foodstuffs and things. So they were doing some fairly normal logistical work for the Russian army. And it remains to be seen how those holes are now going to be filled. But certainly the Wagner groups in Africa remain an issue, and we need to watch which way they're going to lean.
Well, in terms of your experience globally and internationally, when we see something like this play out, and this is a high-level, well-respected, well-regarded, at least among his men, again, men that could probably all likely be bought and paid for if you give them enough gold, what other dominoes could fall in regards to global relations between different nations because of this particular, again, likely assassination?
Well, as we said just a minute ago, it really is going to boil down to where their loyalties go in the future. And is someone with the appropriate amount of cash going to pop up? Russia really wants to have this force that it has some degrees of separation from, culpable deniability from. They need to have this arm out there working. And so it'll be interesting to see how Russia goes after these men And again, we've watched them already inside of Belarus, stirring up possible trouble along the Polish border. So there are designs for these men. It's just a matter of how their loyalty shakes out.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.